as we know, doctors always tell us, stress is a killer. You've got to, pay attention to your body, listen to your body. What's it telling you? What do you need to do to keep yourself healthy and well? Everybody's different with those types of things on how they're going to be in their own body. That's why I'm a big advocate for, checking in with yourself, checking in with your intuition, really connecting and saying, being honest with yourself. What is it that's causing this pain for you? Is it mental? Is it emotional?
Hey guys, in this episode I get to sit down with my dear friend Justine Ingles, who shared her story about the health challenges she faced, but also how she was able to overcome it. So please stick around to hear her heartfelt story, as it could possibly help you out in helping you decide on some of the choices that you can make to benefit you. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Thanks for tuning back in and welcome back to the round table. Today I'm here on the beautiful winter's morning at my special guest joining me today, Justine Ingles, where we'll get to hear her story about the health challenges that she's had to deal with but also overcome them. So please stick around to hear more about what she gets to share with us. So before we dive in, as always, the round table symbolizes a safe space where stories are shared, voices heard, and lessons learnt. So pull up a seat and join me on the journey, because every story you hear matters. Justine, welcome to the round table.
Thanks, Tar. It's really great to be here. I know it's been a little bit between drinks before I've been seeing you at Toastmasters to when I've seen you now. I think it's been about 6 months when you first asked me to join you at the round table. I'm feeling really nervous about this, but also at the same time feel that there might be, some benefits to someone out there. And if my story can help just one person, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we kind of dive into everything else, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. As you know, I grew up in New Zealand in Taranaki with my father and grandparents and my uncle David. That was my family upbringing. I was an only child with them. I was there because of separation through divorce from my parents as a young girl. So my mother and my siblings lived in Australia and I lived in New Zealand. So I love New Zealand. I haven't been back for some time, but my last time I went back was probably 2016. Dearly love to go back anytime soon. So New Zealand's very much in my heart, but I've been now in Australia for the past 25 years. I'm now a citizen of both countries, so foot in both camps, so to speak. I came to Australia in 2004, I think it was, and I had a graduate year as a nurse. I became a nurse in 2004. I graduated from Taranaki Polytechnic. I did nursing for, those 3 or 4 years training there. What prompted me to go nursing was that I had nursed my father through lung cancer that had gone to kidney cancer, and 4 weeks later I nursed my grandmother who had a stroke. So that was the catalyst, shall we speak, that brought me into the nursing field. Some people say I was always chosen to be a nurse. Why did you become a nurse? Were you passionate about it? I've always been passionate about helping people, but I became a nurse solely because my grandmother who raised me was a nurse, and then subsequently having that family loss, I was sort of pushed into that nursing space. I actually woke up from a dream one night and was sort of told you need to go in and do nursing. So that's literally how I started my nursing journey. So fast forward to 2004, and I moved to Australia to be nearer my other siblings and my mother. And I did my graduate year at the Alfred in Melbourne in cystic fibrosis and respiratory management. I was there for 1 year, and then I went out to, I think it was Hay, New South Wales, where I was doing. I had a little break for a while. I did some roustabouting on a sharing team, and just wanted to have a little bit of a break from the pressures of the nursing environment. It wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be. There was a lot of bullying, a lot of top-down, hierarchical behaviour that was really difficult to deal with, on top of dealing with your patients and their challenges and trying to be there for them 100%. So yeah, I became the nurse because of my father's cancer journey ultimately. Fast forward to 13th of July 2022.
Which happens to be
Today is 13th of July 25. Today is the anniversary of the day that I found my breast lump on my right side, and I woke up again after a dream, or shall we say premonition. I don't know what it would be, but I literally woke up with my hand on my heart and realising that I had a lump on the right side of my breast. And from there I probably spent about half an hour or so crying, thinking, what am I going to do? It took me about a week to tell my partner, and that's not long after that I found out that I actually had triple negative breast cancer, which was a complete shock to me, and it really, really changed my world 3 years ago today.
so mentally and physically you were definitely challenged. How were you able to work in an area where you could kind of stay focused on what you needed to do?
Well, at the time, because of the COVID environment, through various choices we'd made and situations that were out of our control, I lost my job. I lost 2 jobs and went bankrupt through the COVID time. My partner also lost his job the same week that I lost my first one. So that COVID time really shook us around. I think that, there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that right now, whether they're currently still going through that journey or whether they're still dealing with the overflow of what's happened through the COVID time. I wasn't working at the time I was working. I was working for Integrated Living Australia as a senior health coach, managing the short-term restorative care program for Integrated Living Australia. I was there for 12 months, and then the COVID time happened, and subsequent choices meant that I lost my job. And as I do believe, and it's my gut feeling, that the breast cancer was simply caused by the stress of that time. As we know, doctors always tell us, stress is a killer. You've got to, pay attention to your body, listen to your body. What's it telling you? What do you need to do to keep yourself healthy and well? It's not just a tag phrase, it's an actual fact. The body, when it's under huge amounts of stress, like a lot of people have been over the last 5 years, particularly, the body in that kind of fight and flight state of stress response over time will cause a storm in the body if it's not addressed. I really deeply feel that this journey that I've been on in the last 3 years, the breast cancer one particularly, was the result of the catalyst of the COVID time. Because of the 2 job losses, the bankruptcy, the loss of our dog, which was our family, because I don't have children, so he was my child, so to speak. So there was a lot of traumatic events happening through that time, both to myself and my partner, and people that we knew around us, as a lot of people could relate to. I do feel going through that time, what kept me going was, I don't know, just that sort of determination that I wasn't going to let anything bring me down. I'd seen what my father went through with the lung cancer that went to his kidneys at 53 years old. He died at 53. I was only 51 when this happened. 51, I hadn't turned, So I at that year, I got it in July, 13th of July 22. I had the surgery the 24th of August 22. By December of 22, at that point I was wondering whether I was going to make December of that year, whether I was going to be alive still, because it was diagnosed as triple negative breast cancer after biopsy. which is only 15 to 20% of people, or women, or men for that matter. Men can have breast cancer too, it's not just women. 15 to 20% of people get triple negative breast cancer. And I was told by the surgical oncologist it's one of the worst that you can have. It's harder to treat, more aggressive, more likely to spread. Everything about it was negative. But in my view, it's a positive, because I wouldn't have taken the pharmaceutical medication they put me on anyway. So I found my own way through that. And I really did that through faith and belief in myself, firstly. You know, there was a very deep gut feeling in me, don't worry, Justine, this isn't going to get you. This isn't your time. But there was a time through that when it was very black, where it was very dark. And I remember sitting on the couch with my partner beside me, and I remember thinking, oh, God, you know, this is my time, just take me. You know, I was exhausted. I was just through the COVID time, the job losses, trying to be on the treadmill to earn money to make sure we had roof over our head, you know, to keep the wheels turning, so to speak, so that, you know, we could keep our life as it was, you know, without too much adverse effects. Anyhow, the breast cancer journey was very traumatic for me, and there was a lot of it I didn't speak to my partner about. I actually spent a lot of time speaking to my psychologist about it. And a lot of women would know, you know, having been through a breast cancer journey, and everyone's different in how they handle things. I'm a very dogmatic person. I'm like a dog with a bone. If I get an idea in my mind and I feel that it's something that will succeed, I will just stick at it. And I think that's my tenacity. I think I just stuck at it. I kept having faith that, no, it's going to be okay, and having tenacity to believe that it was going to be okay. I did a lot of meditating as well, a lot of praying. Not that I'm religious in any way, but I did a lot of meditation. I believe in connecting to my inner self, and I listened to the inner voice, the positive inner voice that I had was guiding me the whole time. And there was actually a time when it sort of came to the sort of end, if you like, which it doesn't really come to an end. Once you've heard the big C word, you know, it's always kind of with you. You always think, oh, is this going to rear its head again or not, you know. But there was a time when I actually felt this voice in me say, it's okay, Justine, it's over. You know, I actually heard those words. So there was a very big shift to, and I've always been connected to the intuition side, being a nurse, because I had to do that to be able to read other people, to be able to connect with other people at their most vulnerable times, and allow them to give me the information I needed to look after them well, you know. So I've always been that little bit inclined, but through my breast cancer journey, I really tapped into that a lot more.
If you could, for someone that's listening that's possibly going through a similar challenge with dealing with different degrees of the cancer journey that they're on, or the recovery, could you walk us through, like, in such a way that as best or as simple for them to possibly maybe take into account to look into in helping them on their journey?
Yeah, sure, no problem. The other side to this coin is that I was actually an oncology nurse for 12 months prior to
What's an oncology nurse?
Oncology is a nurse that specialises in cancer care. So they work on, I was a charge nurse on a rehab and oncology board in Victoria for probably about nearly 12 months. I ended up leaving in the end because of the amount of death that I was seeing and needed to look after my own mental health. In terms of oncology, for my personal journey, I chose not to speak to an oncologist because of what I'd seen in my nursing career. I felt I had seen a lot of people pass not from the cancer itself, but more from the treatment option. So there's only like a number of pathways in the medical industrial complex that they'll give you. They'll tell you can go down chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or immunotherapy. Those are the three sort of areas that they'll take you down at the moment. You know, that pathway may not be right for everyone, and in my circumstances, none of those pathways felt right to me, so I allowed them to do surgery for me to remove I think it was about a 2.5 to 3 centimetre tumour on the right side. They also wanted to take all of my lymph nodes, and I fought them on that because being a nurse, I knew that taking all of the lymph nodes was basically my entire immune system gone. So I said, you can take one and then check for cancer. If there's cancer in it, I will then consider that you can do more, but only if there's cancer in it. So luckily for me, the day surgery that I had on the 24th of August 2022 was only day surgery. I was only in there for probably about an hour and a half, so it was fairly minor surgery. They came out and they said that, when I got the results, that they had taken it. It was a wide margin, so they'd taken the entire tumour and one lymph node and checked for cancer, further cancer in the lymph node, and there was no other cancer. So I was jumping for joy at that point because I knew if it was in the lymph node, I was in a whole heap of trouble, and that it was going to be a totally different pathway. So that was the first really good news for me. So I'm very glad that I chose the surgery pathway, but in that respect, the surgery pathway also brought to my table a whole lot of problems that I never had before. This is where I believe when people are going through cancer journey, no matter where it is in the body, even if it's, doesn't matter where it is, I think that the clinicians that you're dealing with need to be more upfront and honest with you about the risks versus benefits of those treatments. And the reason I say that is I refuse to see an oncology doctor because I don't have respect. I feel that some of their treatments actually kill people more than they heal. So that was my view. And obviously everybody's got their own view on that. So I decided that I would go and talk to the radiation oncologist, and I spoke to them, but I kind of had already made my mind up, but I was just sort of jumping through the hoops to see what they'd say to me. Because I'm an actually currently qualified and still practicing registered nurse, I sat down with them and they said to me, "Oh, Justine, as you would know, these are all the side effects," and they listed them. I already knew what they all were. And in the last sentence he said is, "as you know, also causes breast cancer." And that's where I sort of waved him goodbye and said, "No, I won't be having any radiation, thank you very much." Bearing in mind that I'd already been told by the surgical oncologist that they had gotten all of the tumour, there was no remaining cancer. They wanted me to have 6 weeks radiotherapy on top of that, knowing that radiotherapy causes breast cancer. I'm just going to leave that on the table for a minute.
Before you continue on, can you kind of walk us through the 3 areas that you spoke of, the different treatments, radio?
I don't know a great deal about all of them. It's been a while since I've been in the oncology field, so I couldn't really advise anybody on that. They'd have to speak to their medical people about those treatments if they're going to choose those pathways. I'm just really sharing my story because I feel that sometimes in the cancer field, the fear takes over and we're not thinking rationally. We rush into treatments that aren't necessarily the right ones for us, and then after the fact go, whoops, I don't think I should have done that one because I've now got this, or, So with any treatment that you take, medical or otherwise, there's obviously risks versus benefits, and that's how I roll. That's what I think as a nurse. What are the risks? What are the benefits? If the risks outweigh the benefits, you've got to ask yourself, is this the right treatment for me? Regardless of what your family, your friends, your oncologist are telling you, listen to your own body. Your own body will let you know what is the right treatment path for you. If you've developed your own intuition. I'm not saying not to talk to people, not to get the right information from the experts. Just check in with yourself before you make that final decision. Don't feel pushed by other people. Don't feel you've got to keep other people happy. This is your journey and your journey alone. And as much as I had lots of arguments with my family who did want me to do chemo, etc., I truly believe if I'd had that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. That's how I found about the chemo for me. And there was a reason for that too. There's an underlying reason for that, another medical condition that I knew wouldn't respond to that very well. But in terms of immunotherapy. I'm seeing patients in my community nurse job at the moment that are responding fairly well to some of the immunotherapy, but they do have to be, like anyone having chemo radiotherapy, closely managed, closely watched, have their neutrophils checked every day, because when I worked at the oncology ward, I saw a number of patients after their chemos go into toxic shock, and their immune system was so low they actually died because of the toxic shock of the treatment. Now, that's an absolute truth. I've seen that with my own eyes. I was the nurse in charge. I was the one that had to try and make the decisions for this poor patient who really didn't have any way back. And it was ultimately because of the treatment. And they hadn't monitored their bloods enough to say, right, you know, Mrs. Jones, we're not going to give you that treatment today because your immune system is at such a low point, you may not come back from the treatment. So this is pretty heavy stuff, I understand, but this is from my lived experience. I'm no expert, okay? I've got some expertise, which I worked in the oncology work back in, I think it was 2011, so it's been some time now. There's probably a lot of new research and things like that that people want to investigate themselves, but I'm not a fan of any of those treatments. I've used other treatments to get through. I did agree to the surgery for myself, but as I said, I came out of that with some other side effects that I now can't get rid of, namely neuropathic feet. And on the surgery itself, I came out with a staph infection in my wound, which took me 6 weeks to heal. Now, they wanted me to go back to hospital for IV therapy, and I said, no, you've given me this. It was only a day's surgery. I'm not coming near the hospital. Being a nurse, I knew what I knew. I got a bottle of normal saline and I flushed my breast day in, day out for probably about 6 weeks, and took the antibiotics. I had oral antibiotics that I was taking. And I flushed my breast day in, day out for probably about 6 weeks, and it did eventually heal. But I also had a situation where the wound where they'd surgically, stitched it up, came apart. So that's called dehiscing. And I ended up in the surgical oncologist ward as an emergency. They researched it without any anaesthetic. I had nobody with me. And I was crying at the time, of course. And the breast nurse just said to me, "Don't worry, Justine, it'll heal." Just brushed me off, completely gaslit. No comfort care, nothing. Which was very distressing for me as a nurse. I've been the person that sat with people and held their hands in very, very, traumatic circumstances. But when it came to my time, I didn't really have that support. Anyhow, flip side of that is I did get through it. And one of my biggest mottos in my life in general, has been, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And that is what has got me through. At my lowest point, mentally and physically, when I really thought I was going to die and, things were bleak, I just didn't know how I was going to survive. And this wasn't from the cancer, this was from the surgery effects, right? The tumour itself didn't cause me any problems. It was the surgery that caused the problems for me. But thankfully, I'm 3 years clear. I've been 3 years clear since that surgery. But,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so obviously it's a very emotional topic for me, especially being an anniversary today of when I first found that lump. But in some ways, that lump's also brought some blessings to my life. I've become much more aware of things that I wasn't aware of before. Like connecting more with the people that I love around me, although I don't have many people left. It's just me and my partner, and my mother Gay was there for me as well. And I had some really good friends in New Zealand that were there for me, on the phone, and sent me, gifts and cards and stuff, which was really lovely. But yeah, it's a journey that has helped me grow in a lot of ways as well.
With everything that you've had to overcome during the surgery and that, how was your mental health at that time? Because you being cleared with the surgery, cleared kind of, till you had to do some more work on yourself. But there would have been the mental challenges as well to stay positive and continue on. What was that like for you? And what, as you said, your motto was, "What doesn't break you
makes you stronger."
How did you keep going then? Like, what were some
I
of
don't
the?
know. I just I had this thought in my head. I don't want to die at 53 like my father did. So that was one. And also to add salt to the wound, at the time, my Uncle Murray Ingles, Muzzer, was also fighting a battle with cancer in New Zealand, and he subsequently died on Mother's Day in 2023. So I was fighting cancer at the same time he was fighting cancer. And we were the last of our Ingles family. There's one other, I've got a sibling, but it's literally me that's left.
Sorry for your loss there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's part of life, though, Ta. We're all heading that way, whether we like it or not. And I just think, the blessing side of it for me, for the cancer, has made me appreciate each day much more and be more aware of people around me and their feelings. And, maybe I was a bit too task-focused in some ways and wasn't more aware of people's emotional feelings and things, but also being aware of my own emotions as well. We're very good at keeping up, appearances if we need to, and sometimes that keeping up appearances is actually doing you harm.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning back in, and if you're finding value in today's show, then, well, you know the drill. Hit that like button, share and subscribe so this channel can continue to grow, but also reach out to unsung heroes and to share their stories that are either making an impact in the community or for others that resonate with such stories that they get to hear. So without further ado, let's get back to it.
So it's about checking in with yourself and learning to know, at what point do I keep up appearance and at what point do I allow myself to be real, to show and be vulnerable and show my emotions to people around me, and also seek out the healing that I might need, because for me, I had to do a lot of deep diving because I think part of my breast cancer journey was dealing with the emotions I had lingering from not being raised by my biological mother. It had a lot to do with not having had children as well. There was a part of that. But also the catalyst, I do believe, was the stress of the COVID time that triggered that stress response in my body, where I was at such a low point, my body developed a tumour. You've got to understand that these things can take time, and there's often a lot of, or there may not be, trauma involved. Some people have trauma involved, some people don't. It might be your lifestyle choices, it might be trauma from the past. It might be something that you've not dealt with or you've been sweeping under the carpet for a long time. The best thing that I think I did for myself was see my psychologist fairly regularly. If I hadn't done that, I don't think I would have got through. I didn't want to burden my partner with, I know he was there for me in every way he could possibly be, but this is a woman's journey, and often men don't know how to respond at the best of times to our emotions. So you give a husband or a friend that's a man this situation, and they may not know what the woman needs from you if you've not already got that happening in your relationship. So for me, Kev was there, absolutely 110% for me. I knew he was, and I knew he was just there sitting at the end of the couch on the nights that I felt dreadful. But I did protect him a lot from what it physically looked like. I didn't want anyone to see it, and I would go to my psychologist and just sit and cry and tell her about all my feelings and what was going on for me. If I hadn't done that, I don't know how I would have got through as well as what I have. I'm an emotional person. I do cry easily, and I think that's helped me kind of deal with the emotional impact of having a breast cancer. I'm very lucky though at the same time. Like, there was a point in the surgery journey that they did say to me, if you don't agree to this is before the surgery, if you don't agree to 6 weeks radiotherapy, we're recommending double mastectomy. So at one point they wanted to take both my breasts for a tumour that was only about 3 centimetres in grade 2. And I said to them, no way, I'm keeping these girls as much as I can. Whereas some other woman might say, no, yep, get rid of them. But I felt for me I needed to keep that feminine connection. And that was just all I was thinking. I know I haven't had children, but it's part of me as a woman. You know, it's that body image. Women have body image. You know, people go and get, you know, butt lifts and breast lifts and things like that to look better. How do you think it feels for a woman who's had them taken off? You know, I'm very lucky in that I haven't had that happen, but I do still live with the daily pain of where they have cut into me, because it's numb and it doesn't feel the same anymore, and
So
it
does
affected
it
my shoulders.
physically
and my neck.
hurt you still today as well?
Yeah, I'm sitting here now. I've got numbness because I'm talking about, every time I talk about something emotional, I get the aching. It gets worse. And I just think everybody's different with those types of things on how they're going to be in their own body. That's why I'm a big advocate for, you know, checking in with yourself, checking in with your intuition, really connecting and saying, you know, being honest with yourself. You know, what is it that's causing this pain for you? Is it mental? Is it emotional? Because mental and emotional pain to me is really when what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing is not in alignment. So if you're thinking one thing but saying another because you want to keep up appearances, or you're not checking in with your heart and soul and saying, is this the right way for me to respond to this? You know, I'm a very deep thinker. So going through this journey, I had a lot of time to think, because even though I didn't actually take time off work, I had a week off around the surgery. Then I went back to work, and I've worked ever since. I didn't have any time off for recovery whatsoever, pretty much. I had 1 week off.
Was that like something for you to keep you mentally occupied?
Yes, yeah. Again, the nursing for me, I think when I sat down with other people, and it was very challenging because it was only like maybe a week after the surgery, I was sitting down with women that had had both breasts off as a nurse to say, you know, and so I learned a lot from them, you know, about what their journeys were and what they were currently going through, and it would make me go, all right, I'm pretty sure I've done the right thing for me here. You know, it reinforced for me my choices were correct for me, if that makes sense. And I'm a firm believer that when you go out and you help somebody else, even though you're hurting, you can't help but get something out of that. So for me, being a nurse and helping other people helps me every day. Every day that I work and help another person helps me. And so just feeling that and feeling into that, I knew, because they wanted me to go on government benefits. You know, I'm not young, I'm getting older. So they wanted me to go on government care or like sickness benefit or something. And at the time, I was working telemarketing for the government, doing sports and travel surveys from home to make ends meet. And I just happened to run into someone at the local pub here in Bargara, and they offered me a care planning job as a nurse. It just sort of fell back into my lap, because I was getting ready to give up my registration as a nurse, because I was thinking I'll never work as a nurse again. I hadn't worked for a nurse for 8 months through the COVID time, for obvious reasons. And the breast cancer was the result of that stressful time, because January 22 I'd lost my job on the 13th of January 22, and the 14th of January 22 I was told by Centrelink, you will not get any financial support. I was rejected. Both me and my partner were rejected by Centrelink. And then about a couple of months later we lost our dog, which was devastating. And just that whole time, you know, that was a 6-month period. And then it was in the 13th of July, that I found the breast lump. And in hindsight, looking back, I can kind of go, you know what? That stressful time was the catalyst for me developing this breast cancer. Yes, it's genetic in that it's in my family. You know, there's been 4 other family members on my Ingles side that have all lost their lives to cancer. It's my grandfather and his sister, my father and his brother, Uncle Murray, who recently died in 23. So I'm the fifth one in the family to have a cancer. So I'm well aware that it's genetic as well. But I do believe that the catalyst, it's like medicine now, the medicine now is, it's epigenetics is the way of the future. It's talking about, you might have a diagnosis of something. You might say, oh, my family's had this, this and this, therefore I'm going to get it. That's not necessarily the case. It's about the epigenetics, which is the environment that your cells in your body live within. What your environment, what do you do, what do you say, what do you think, what do you eat, what do you drink? What are the toxins that you're ingesting through this, 21st century life that we live in, that we're out of our control. It's about controlling the environment around you as much as possible. So epigenetics means that the environment is more likely to pull the trigger of the gun of cancer than the actual genetics itself. So you can have the genetics there, but if you don't give it the right conditions, it won't trigger. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's...
But would that also apply to other sicknesses than you, not just with cancer?
If you look at all the lifestyle factors, if people say we've now got epidemics of cancer, we've got epidemics of mental health, we've got epidemics of diabetes, we've got epidemics now of just dementia in the community. The amount of people that I'm seeing older in the community that live alone with dementia is out of control. The whole thing is just, it's a mindful. But if you look at health in one big ball and say all of the conditions that a human being can be diagnosed with there in their lifetime, if the one thing we do is try to control the epigenetics, which is the environment of my body, that's a big factor, right? But the problem is now we've got governing bodies telling us what we can and can't do with our bodies. And that brings on a whole different conversation. But ultimately, I think the message I'm just trying to get across is about, being your own best friend, having self-love, believing that you can heal. If you give the body the right conditions, you will heal. The body has got an intelligence that knows how to heal. Sometimes when we get in there with all our cutting it apart and sticking in needles and stuff like that, isn't always doing it a favour. So, and that's for everybody to determine themselves, obviously with their medical experts. But for me personally, I had a very strong belief that I could heal. That was the first factor. So my mental health, I was thinking, yep, I can do this. But that was after I had a big meltdown, though. I had a very big meltdown. I'm too young to die. I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die, So, yeah, the journey was very emotional. And my partner was there for me through all of it. And I'm very grateful for the people that were there for me through all of it. Because I just simply wouldn't have done it otherwise. We do have to have people around us that have got our back. And I had a very small circle, but I know that the people that were in the circle had my back too. So, yeah.
If there was one or two things for someone that's, like I said earlier, that's possibly going through their own personal struggles and journey of either whatever treatment they're trying to, do for themselves, what would be one or two key pointers of what they could do for themselves if it meant going outside of their control? Like maybe if they needed to seek help, what would probably be one or two things?
To seek help for treatment, you mean?
Well, even if it meant a mental support as well. Not just...
Well, I know this isn't for everyone, but for me personally, meditation really worked. I had already been engaging with an American guy by the name of Ed Stracher online, and he's developed a self-healing mastery course that allows people to connect around the world virtually, online, to learn how to meditate with the purpose of self-healing. So I was already doing that before I found the breast lump. And then he connected me with Karen Goldingham, who is another mentor of mine, who lives in New Zealand. And I think mainly because the time frames, I can't always get onto American time. I can get online on New Zealand time. So I've connected with them both, and Karen was very instrumental in my healing as well, because there were a couple of times that I was melting down and I contacted her and said, I need some help, And she would just say, come on, Justine, you've got this, bring me back down to earth, get me out of the fear that I was in. I think the worst thing that we can do is to play into the fear, and look, whilst we do feel the fear, and you do have to honour the fear that surrounds that word, the big C, and what it entails for people, it doesn't have to be that way, you can change that emotion or that energy to be a more positive or more loving one through intention. So, and when I say intention, I don't mean thoughts, I mean heartfelt intention. So with these meditations, we would connect to our heart space, but still the mind. The mind plays no part in it. The mind is just a tool that receives information from the world around us. The real work is done in your heart space. And I think at the moment in the world, people are struggling with getting out of the head space and into the heart space. Some people may not understand what I mean when I say that, but I think it's loving with open heart. It's a hard thing to do in the world at the moment because people are wanting to protect, keep the boundaries around them, don't allow the world to get in. Again, through this meditation technique, I learned how to detach. So detaching means not that you don't care, but you detach from the things around you that are having a negative impact on your energy field.
Cool.
So meditation, or the other softer way of doing it might be mindfulness. I've done mindfulness training as a nurse. I was actually trained in meditation through a hospital that I worked at down in Myrtleford. So my meditation journey started in 2011 when a hospital that I was working for put me through a leadership program. And that leadership program, ran by a consulting business out of Melbourne, part of that leadership program said, you cannot be a leader of people until you learn to lead yourself. Right? So you lead yourself first, get yourself right, and then you become the leader for others because you've started with yourself. And that's not selfish. That's self-love, learning how to understand your needs, learning to sit with your darkness helps you do it better with others. And that's just what I've learned from that. And in this consulting business, in this course that I did, it was 6 months, to be a better leader in the hospital as a nurse. And I was thinking, oh God, this will be, death by PowerPoint or something. But it ended up being one of the best things I ever did. So the 6-month course taught us how to meditate with a mantra. So you pick a word and you sit with that word in silence, in stillness, and you allow that word to play over in your head because it keeps your mind busy. While the mind's busy, it can't think, right? So you don't have those monkey mind thoughts coming through, right? So you focus on a mantra. So you might choose the word love or friendship or sunshine, whatever it is, whatever meaningful to you, and that whatever resonates in a positive way. And then you focus on your heart space. You still that mind. You keep the mind still and you go into your heart and feel. Because one of the things I will say to anyone with any kind of cancer, you have to feel it to heal it. You cannot heal if you don't feel it first. And that might mean going into the abyss, going into the darkness in your heart and soul, finding out what is the biggest challenge, what is the driver of this pain that I'm going through cancer. And for me, it was the abandonment, rejection feeling as a child from not being raised with my mother and my sister, and also not having had children. So for me, that was my underlying core emotion that I needed dealing with. And I've done that through the many sessions I've had with a psychologist. And I'm not
That's also probably another one to add into the
Yeah.
the picture with having a psychologist.
Yes, absolutely. Having a psychologist or just a really, skilled counsellor, personally a psychologist, because they do have more skills. You'd only ever go to a psychiatrist if you felt any medication, and in which case the counsellor or the psychologist would recommend you to them. If they felt that their cognitive therapy wasn't working with you, they may say, look, you might need to see a psychiatrist, where they can then prescribe medications. But look, I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals for me. I've seen a lot of side effects of those with patients and things. So I've tried to keep my healing journey, very, very natural. So I'll just share with you a couple of the things I did. So through the breast cancer journey, when I was coming out the other side of it and I was feeling like I was on the way up, the first thing I did was take out sugar of my diet. No sugar. Get rid of sugar. The second thing I did, so I replaced the sugar with a little bit of honey. But I don't have very many coffees or teas and stuff, so I put, a bit of honey. The second thing I did is I actually ate more fruit for my body, right? I tried to get my body into an alkaline state, so I'd take bicarbonate soda and also drinking lemon water every day, because lemon water has the same active detoxing effect as, gets rid of the sluggishness of the liver. So if you start every morning on an empty stomach with warm water and lemon, that will help flush the liver. I would also, before I went into the surgery, because I was in panic mode, I was thinking, oh my God, I don't cope with pharmaceuticals. I don't cope with these sorts of things. What am I going to do? I found a guy who, in the local area, in this Wide Bay area, makes a Rife machine. And a Rife machine is a frequency machine that provides a frequency to the body. So you dial in the frequency, or every disease we have in the body has a frequency. In this Rife frequency, I bought one of these devices off this chap before I went into the surgery, and I had the device on me 24/7 for 8 months. I wore it on my body 24/7.
So what does it look like? What is it? A strap on?
I've got it. It's about yay big. You know, if someone goes to hospital and they have a morphine pump put on them because they've got pain, so they're walking around in the public area with a little bag on the side with morphine being pumped into the body for pain. No different. The only difference is this is a frequency device. You have to keep it within a metre of the body. So I used to wear it in a little bag on my body to keep it nearby, to have the body then have that frequency provided to it at all times. Now, the frequency is not necessarily able to be heard. It's a frequency that the body and the cells in the body will resonate with. And if cancer's got a frequency and you match the right frequency, there was a guy that wrote a book called The Cancer Cured That Worked. His name was Dr. Royal Rife, and he's, it's questionable. People believe it, don't believe it. Well, I've used it, so I'm an enthusiast now. Look, I don't think it was the be-all and end-all. I think that there was a number of other factors that helped me overcome and make sure I didn't have any further cancer. And I do believe it's diet and lifestyle, which is your epigenetics, creating the environment in my body so that cancer can't live. And there's the other factor that there is some evidence to say that parasites in our body have a lot of action to do with cancer as well. So the medications, there are particular medications that can be used for that. But I didn't use those. I just used lemon water, a bicarbonate soda, the frequency device, changing my diet, eating a lot more fruit and fresh fruit and veggies, mostly, some of it mostly raw, even the vegetables, raw. They don't have to be cooked. Most of the veggies that we've got, that we get out of the ground, out of Mother Earth, can be eaten raw. You don't have to cook them. So I found a guy online who had also overcome cancer, stage 4, and he had been eating raw vegetables and raw salads and things like that, using your cabbage, your cauliflower, all of those types of things, and then making a sauce to put on it, having some of those. The interesting thing is I've had an underlying rare disease that I was born with, and that was part of the reason I was so worried about the treatment. Because I was born with a rare disease called PKU, and PKU means phenylketonuria. It's a rare disease diagnosed at birth through the heel prick test when babies are born. That test was developed when I was born, around the time I was born in 1970. So I was really worried about the treatment for the breast cancer and my body not receiving it, or being able to cope with it. And that was the reason why I chose the path I did, because I've got a body that does not metabolize protein effectively. So that meant the first 15 years of my life I only lived on fruit and vegetables anyway, which begs the question, if I had such a great lifestyle growing up, how did I end up with a cancer at 51 years old? Because the first 15 years of my life, all I ate was vegetables and fruit, So everybody's journey through cancer is different. You have to look at your entire life, your entire attitude to life, what's happened genetically, what you've been doing in your life in terms of your epigenetics, your environment, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're moving, am I thinking well, am I eating well, am I moving well? The three things that one of our chiropractors talked to us about is just those three concepts alone. Am I thinking well, am I eating well, am I moving well? Those three things alone will help you age well. So that's just sort of where I'm at the moment.
That's cool. Sounds like pretty good advice that I'll be looking into myself, especially with sugars and stuff.
Yeah. How many sugars you're having in your coffee there, Ta?
So what I take away from that is psychologist, eating habits, a healthier eating habit, trying to, it doesn't happen overnight for people to develop that tolerance, I suppose, before you get used to something that benefits you. And then just a bit of meditation can also...
I think maybe having a plan as well, having a plan in your head about, what would work for me, what could I stick to in my healing journey. So whether you're trying to heal from a physical or a mental and emotional, the journey can sort of sometimes be the same, because remembering our mental and emotional health is very much intrinsically linked to our physical health. It's only the medical industrial complex that separates it out into specialists. But our bodies are all connected. You've got the power within you to decide how that looks. What I'm saying is, don't give your power away to people that are experts when you've got your own inner power.
Oh, wow. This has been such an experience and a masterclass, I reckon, with what you've had to go through, what you've experienced, but what you've also overcome. So, look, before we kind of wrap things up, what would be a couple of things that I may not have asked you yet that you would like to share and, give you this opportunity, and then tie up everything to where you've come from to where you're at?
Where I've come from to where I'm at. I think the biggest thing I'd say is be kind to yourself. Kindness. Start with you.
Cool.
Start with you. And that will help you overcome any disease that's going on within your body. We are our own biggest critic after all. We look in the mirror, we find the hairs, the wrinkles, whatever. Just be real with yourself and be kind to yourself and realise you're doing the best you can. Whatever journey you're on, that would be my advice. And also, just what doesn't break you makes you stronger.
Cool. Justine, look, thank you for taking the time to share your story, and for someone out there that's heard what we've had to talk about today, hopefully you can take it upon yourself to take a few pointers from today's discussion, and I really appreciate everything that you shared. We'll obviously have to catch up down the track for another take on other areas that you've experienced in your life. And
sure. No problem.
Again, thank you for joining me at the round table.
Thank you, Ta.